So it's in addition to the just practicality of not sending demons to people that are going to cast them to the abyss because we lose one, and then also they're just terrified of it, that I think makes it very effective. There are some people that try to say, well, Jesus can only do this or something to that effect, but I can't find anything that limits us in that regard. Jesus tells us that he has given us this authority for this reason, because to that nothing shall by any means harm us. He's given this ability, and so I can't find anything that limits it. In fact, most of what we see and know about dealing with demons is from seeing how other people did it. Like, that, and we're just essentially copying it, and including Jesus. That's we're not going to send him into pigs. I don't think that's probably the best issue, although I guess we could. But I think that the abyss thing is important, and I do emphasize that a lot, because I think it's the sledgehammer to this, calling out on Jesus and, rebuking them in the name of Jesus, or all the different things that people say that are somewhat general are going to work. But this has this certain effect that really makes a difference in terms of taking the really, really bad cases of people that are being attacked very, very frequently. And if they will commit to doing this with consistency, every time they are encountered or have some kind of attack like this, they boldly command them to go to the abyss. We see this stop in their lives, and that is, that's a pretty significant testimonial. So yeah, I guess we should probably get into what is sleep paralysis and what do the scientists say about it, because that's inevitably going to come up. Is that a good place to take it, you think?
Yeah, that was exactly where I was going to go next. So,
okay, so I think we've already kind of covered the basis of what sleep paralysis is. The people see, hear, feel things. The things that are common in the more severe cases are not just sensing the presence. I would say the sense of the presence, even when it's in shadow form, is still what I would call a mild case of sleep paralysis. But as sleep paralysis gets more severe, it gets pretty radical. I mean, they're not only seeing the being is attacking them. Sexual violation is extremely common among both men and women, and it can be pretty severe stuff. But again, that's we're talking about people that have generally opened a lot of doors. Well, I don't know. I'll back up off that, because I think that there are a lot of cases of people being attacked that for various other reasons. I do think women are more vulnerable to sexual attacks, but I don't want to. It is very rare, and I would consider it severe. Well, it's not that rare, but it's a severe form of it. So anyway, a lot of stuff happens, and these things can appear as anything they want to. Your dead relatives, your alive relatives, they'll be aliens, they'll be, some gnarly demon thing. They'll pretend to be some Egyptian god and tell you that they are, and one of the things that we've noticed with hearing so many of these stories and experiences that these, you cannot underestimate the intelligence of these beings. A lot of times they have ulterior motives. If they know that you're going to be experiencing them, and some cases they don't just go all out, I'm mad at you because I hate you and I'm a demon, and attack you, or do, sometimes they do the really kind of seductive thing where they do appear as some, I said Egyptian god, let's go with that, and they'll give you some weird name and say, look it up on the internet, and lo and behold, you find this name, and it starts to validate all these, new agey ideas, and you go further and further in. They are brilliant. Some of the things that they say to people to get them to be more interested in the occult, or all these other motives that they have, are amazing. And when you analyze it and think about what they're saying, it's like, man, that is genius deception, what they're doing. So you can't underestimate their genius in that regard, evil genius. And a lot of times that, when they appear as dead relatives, sometimes they'll tell you something about, how Christianity isn't true, or, something like that. They always if you analyze it, it's always an anti-Jesus message one way or the other. So they appear as all those different things, and they attack in all those different ways. The medical community has no answer for why that happens. I mean, they have some guesses, and I know that if you read about this, it'll seem like an open and shut case. It's like, well, the scientists know exactly what's happening. But if you read their papers and what they're, the scientific journals about sleep paralysis, it becomes evident that they don't. And they'll admit to you they don't. In fact, if you go to the Wikipedia article and look up the physiology of sleep paralysis, it'll say it is unknown. We don't currently know the physiology of why that happens, particularly why people are hallucinating, quote unquote, these things. They don't have a mechanism that they have proven into any degree of satisfactory, proving that it's true. So let's break down what they say is happening. So they basically say that when a person wakes up and can't move, that alone is and I tend to probably agree with this. I'm not sure if the demons are causing the not moving because they're waking you up at a certain time in your REM sleep or whatever, but it is one of these motor skills thing. We do have a thing that is keeping our body from moving during dreams so we don't act out our dreams. Some people don't have that working, and it causes all kinds of problems. But for whatever reason, they have to come up with a reason why when a person wakes up in that state, they begin to, quote unquote, hallucinate these things. Now, what they will say as far as why people see things, hear things, feel things, all these different issues, they will say that those hallucinations, quote unquote, I'll stop saying quote unquote, are caused by felt presence. Okay, this is a technical term that they use in their journals. Felt presence is the feeling that there's something evil in the room. And what they say is that when you wake up and you feel this presence, you start to get scared, and then you start to come up, you start to manifest all these different things in your imagination, and you just hallucinate it because you were scared about the felt presence. So you manifested all these different feelings and attacks and speaking to you and all the stuff that happens. Now that leaves the question, okay, but what about the felt presence? I mean, if your theory is that that this felt presence is causing the hallucinations, where is the felt presence coming from? Because it's a hallucination too, right? I mean, if there really isn't a presence there, then it's a hallucination. So they literally say the answer for why do hallucinations happen in sleep paralysis is because of felt presence. A hallucination causes a hallucination. So that's one theory. So then they have to figure out a theory about why does felt presence happen in the first place. And this is a little bit more technical. They say that what's happening is that when you wake up, it's activating your threat-activated vigilance system. Okay, so this is when you go out in the woods and you hear a noise. Your threat-activated vigilance system will be active because you're trying to figure out, is that noise a threat? Do I need to run? Is it just a squirrel? Your threat-activated vigilance system is activated. You're looking for a threat. So what they say is when you wake up and you can't move, your threat-activated vigilance system is active. You're looking for a threat. And in the absence of a threat, there is no threat in your room after all. In the absence of a threat, you come up, when you can't find anything to be scared about, you come up with a threat, which is felt presence. Okay? Now, they don't have any reason for saying that. That is a pure hypothesis. That's the only thing that they can think of, essentially, to find out why is there a presence in the room that I'm scared of. And so, but of course, this is an extremely common thing. People are describing this exactly the same evil presence, and it's always this dreaded, evil, foreboding thing that's there. You can't quite place it in the early, in some of the stages, and other stages you can, point to it. So here's the problems with this. The reason why they ultimately came up with that theory is because they were doing MRIs, a neuroimaging stuff on people that were having sleep paralysis, and they noticed that their amygdala, and part of their brain that is essentially the fear center of the brain, where this threat-activated vigilance system is, their amygdala is active. This is the basis of everything that I just got done saying about why they believe it, is that the amygdala is active. Now, the problem with that is that the amygdala would be active. In other words, what they're saying basically is that the amygdala is malfunctioning and causing you to hallucinate all these things. You wake up and because of this, your amygdala does something it shouldn't be doing, and then you because it's malfunctioning and it's creating the hallucinations. That's their theory. But the problem that they haven't been able to rule out is, well, wouldn't a person just be afraid if this stuff was really happening, or if there was a felt presence, if there was an evil presence in the room for some other reason, wouldn't you also be afraid of that, and therefore your amygdala be active? And it's funny because you absolutely need to figure out what's coming first in order to have any kind of theory about this. So, for example, if the felt presence was there first before you got scared and your amygdala was active, or was the amygdala active and then you felt the presence? I mean, what came first? The fear? Because if the fear with no presence comes first, then they have a leg to stand on in terms of their theory. But if you noticed a presence in the room and then got afraid and your amygdala obviously was active, then you need to figure out which comes first. And I actually quote in the book them trying to explain how much of a problem this is. Well, they know how much of a problem it is, but they have never even done a study to figure out this crucial thing. And they said the reason that they can't is because how are you going to tell which comes first? Basically, the people are passed out and they can't move. There's no way for them to tell which comes first. And I would submit there's no way for them to tell if their theory has any merit whatsoever. I would say that everything is a lot of... everything can be much more easily explained if there really is a presence in the room. Because if there really is a presence in the room, then everything makes sense. Of course, they could never come to that conclusion. But when you hear scientists and medical doctors and stuff say, oh, we know what sleep paralysis is, the scientists know this and that, trust me, I've read just about every paper that they have on sleep paralysis out there, and they have no clue what's causing sleep paralysis. They have theories, and very unproven theories they are. So I guess that's covers some of the preliminary stuff there.
So basically, the medical explanation is the amygdala is active, and because of that, you create the felt presence. But essentially the problem with it is they're not answering the question of why is the amygdala active in the first place.
Right, because the amygdala would be active if the person was afraid. And since sleep paralysis is obviously a fearful thing, it's exactly what you would expect if the person was afraid. So they need to rule out that, any good scientific experiment should try to falsify it or try to prove the theory wrong. And they can't rule out the most obvious explanation, which is that the person is simply afraid and that there's nothing wrong with their amygdala.
While the whole time ignoring the evidence that if you call it in the name of Jesus, it stops. I'm sure that was ignored.
Well, that would be my, from a scientific, I'm certainly not a scientist or anything like that, but I would say that I would like to appeal to the scientists on this and say, look, you say that there is no cure for sleep paralysis. There's just no way to stop it. If a person's having sleep paralysis all the time, tell them to have a Coke and a smile and go home because there's nothing, they'll, do some stuff. But if I'm saying that, look, we have hundreds of people that say that they did what you said is impossible by calling on the name of Jesus. Now, right. I know that you can't accept that as what it obviously is, but shouldn't you just try to figure out from your anti-supernatural worldview, shouldn't you figure out what exactly is happening in these cases and try to apply that to a cure or something like that?
Right.
Even if this is just some mental thing, and that's what, anybody that is skeptical about this, they'll just say, well, these people are just calling on something that's good in their life. It could be Buddha, it could be just any old thing that people consider good in their life or their heart, and that's how you do it. Well, if that's how you do it, then why not just tell them that? Think about any old good thing, and it'll just go away. But it's not any old good thing. It's Jesus. Mm-hmm. And that really is the issue. And I do think that you could appeal further to a scientifically minded person in terms of the supernatural or demonic cause of sleep paralysis by a study of anthropology, because there is, throughout history, from the beginning of mankind, we have been as human race, talking about these entities, and it's unbelievably consistent, the things that we say about them, the way that they are contacted, their demeanor, what they do, what they